Although Lu Jinian seemed composed watching the TV, his attention was actually on Qiao Enhao, who sat beside him. He could clearly sense her weariness and unease. When she had the cup in her hands at first, she seemed fine. But when she finished her water, it was like someone had pressed her pressure points. Even her breathing seemed conscientious. Deep down, Lu Jinian felt a strong sense of defeat. He stared at the TV in a trance for a while. Suddenly, he stood up and said without any hint of emotion, "I'll go check to see if it's finished copying." Then he marched off. When Lu Jinian left the room, it felt like a giant mountain was lifted from Qiao Enhao's shoulders. She could finally breathe normally. Raising her hand, she patted her chest and took a few long breaths. Her whole body relaxed and went limp on the sofa, and she started watching the TV. Just then, the TV presenter made a joke. Although Qiao Enhao didn't dare laugh out loud, she couldn't help pursing her lips. Sitting behind the desk, Lu Jinian was taking in Qiao Enhao's every movement. He was slightly startled for a split second. Swiftly, he composed himself and diverted his eyes to the photocopier. Qiao Enhao was afraid that when Lu Jinian came back, it would be awkward, so she thought she may as well close her eyes and pretend to sleep. The room was quiet. Besides the sound of the photocopier, nothing else could be heard. Qiao Enhao closed her eyes. Her mind was racing with wild thoughts, but in the end, she fell asleep in a daze. Once the copy was finished, Lu Jinian reassembled Qiao Enhao's script. He walked back into the room with it to find her lying crooked on the sofa, already asleep. Lu Jinian's steps came to a stop. He stood there for a while, then returned to the room and grabbed a blanket, which he gently pulled over her. Qiao Enhao was deep asleep. She didn't feel a thing. Lu Jinian stared at her beautiful sleeping face for quite some time. His hand reached out to gently touch her face. Just as he was inches away from touching her skin, he stopped in his tracks. His fingers hung in the air for a while. After much consideration, his hand softly and gently stroked her temple, before he quickly pulled away. He stood up and returned to his room. Since Qiao Enhao was sleeping in an uncomfortable position on the sofa, she woke up after over an hour. When she opened her eyes, she looked around the room in a daze. The memory of where she was rushed back, and in that instant, she became truly awake. She slowly got up from the sofa,